Good morning, everybody. Yes, it's all here. It's all happening. It's all Thursday's package of goodies for you. And because it's Thursday, we have Pumi Mashiho. We've missed you. I think it was last week we didn't have you here, Pums. And I mean, it was really crap without you. So I'm very glad that you're back.
Truth is, I
Yeah.
hadn't finished doing my hair.
Oh, please.
Okay, well, now we know. So don't forget, because it's Thursday, we have the burning in Clemeza later. The burning platform.
It's a name I haven't heard of in a while, and I'm not
Wow.
mad I haven't heard of in a while.
The burning in Clemeza. Whatever, did he ever go to prison? I can't even remember. I don't think he did. I think he's probably living large. Of course, this is the land of no consequence, so I wouldn't be surprised if burning Clemeza is in charge of something again. You know, they tell people, they say to people, don't worry, comrade, just go and keep a low profile for a couple of months and they'll forget you exist. Right?
Dude, because haven't we forgotten about the very much alive Shabir Sheikh?
Exactly. You can be a bad person. You can have done terrible things. Even by your own admission, you can have done terrible things. And then
But you know what's good about...
They let you stew for a little bit. People forget about you. And you suddenly come back and you're like the municipal manager of, I don't know, some terrible little town in the middle of nowhere, and you're earning big money again. It's great.
No, but you know what's good about Shabir is he actually has stayed out and away from everybody. You know, he's gone quietly to the golf course. Unlike some people who just have no shame and no remorse, who are out here in the streets, whether they're tweeting crazy or he's just gone, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna sit this one out.
It depends where you're looking for him. There is his brother owns a restaurant in Durban. It's like it's a fast food joint. And supposedly, if you're really looking for him, you can find him there every so often. This is Shabir Sheikh just chilling there.
That's my point. Right. If you're looking for him, he's not in our faces.
And as of this 2018 article, burning in Clemeza, and that's burning with an E, not a U.
Yes.
Bernie Sanders.
Burning Clemeza, yes. He now owns a private investigation and security company.
Oh, is that what he does now? And I wonder who would hire him. Like that's a really interesting proposition. What are you protecting that you need burning in Clemeza?
But he's also doing investigations. He's also doing investigations. Yes. And that.
I'll bet.
He's got the skill. He's got the skill for that one.
His company is called I2Care, and according to the registration documents, it's registered in Lone Hill in Johannesburg.
Oh, okay. That's
what
great.
Is it called? I with the dot or like?
I2Care, ITU care. And then his quote around
it took care.
What if it's Idu? What if it's like
Itu?
I think it is.
Yeah,
really.
I2Care.
He says, I'm an investigator. And those who thought it was the end of me when I was removed from the Hawks will be surprised. I have many years' experience in the detective service and will continue with investigations in my private capacity.
Dude,
well, thanks for the updates. Yeah, he's out there making some money.
There are many people out there looking for somebody to like follow their wife that they think is cheating with their best friend. That's who those like investigators become. They're like
that's where our
photos.
Friend...
That shit is a real thing.
Do you think is that really big in South Africa for the common man?
Huge.
Ask the divorce lawyers.
There are people who would spend half their money just checking on that stuff.
Really?
Ask the divorce lawyers.
Sure. Yeah, the divorce lawyers, they use that stuff, to nail each other in court and to get maintenance one-ups on each other and that kind of thing.
And to get, because people try and hide money. People, you need an investigator, yo.
No, exactly.
I wish I was Bernie Madoff's ex. Do you know how I would be living in that house he's lived in the south of France? That's what I'd be doing right now.
Do you
Or
really
any one
wish
of the
you
4
were
properties.
though?
Only one of the any one of the 4 properties he owns. What? The man's dead. You want to be his ex? He ain't gonna
What
bother
does
you.
he? What does he have to share with
I'm
anyone?
not
Because
sure. Hey? I don't know
isn't
if I'd want to be.
everything he owns just going to pay off his debts?
Didn't his kids have all either committed suicide or they've? It's just a horrible. No, it's a horrible story. I mean, listen, he
Yeah.
brought such misery. He brought such misery to his
Shame.
family. And you know what? This is all where
Shame.
greed comes into it. You know, I heard some stories yesterday, separately from people I know about how there are so many people who are like they're in a bad financial situation, so they kill themselves. And you know, I've thought about how tough former generations of South Africans were, and how many of them didn't have a lot of money. You think about all the people during the struggle. You think about people who went off to fight World War II. You think these are people who really came back to a lot of deprivation. They didn't have a lot of money. Money was not the central reason for them they could survive. I mean, they had enough to kind of to buy rationed food or to, and seriously, not a lot, nothing fancy. They were eating maybe the same thing every single night and pup or whatever was cheapest at that time. But they survived. And if money was, and if money was tight, then, money was tight, but you don't abandon your family. You don't quit life. And you see these people who've lived this, in the one case that I heard yesterday, this one girl, her dad had a lot of money, and he made some bad deal, and he lost half of what he had, which was still a significant amount of money. And she was so upset that they were, in inverted commas, poor, that she tried to kill herself. To me, that's like such a weak reason. And there must have been other complications, because I can't imagine someone would make that decision rationally. But like we've become so materialistic that like so you can't have your house in Camps Bay, so you must kill yourself. No strength, no ability to push through, no ability to try and survive, and certainly no response to the people around you who might be really hurt by something like that. Unbelievable. People have got
I don't know, Gareth.
Did you guys?
We're paper thin now. We're so weak. I mean, it's like, marriage. People, the minute the marriage is not feeling 100%, they're like, oh, well, I'll just take a divorce. I mean, there obviously are marriages that you need to get out of. But like these days, it's so easy. It's so like, it's consumer culture. It's takeaways. It's quick, fast food. It's let's get in, let's get out. The moment things don't totally suit people, they just give up on them. And that includes life.
Have you seen the video of Jackie Chan that's been making the rounds? Well, now that
no,
yes.
What is
what he said about his son.
He made an announcement that he's leaving all his money. When he dies, he's leaving all his money to charity, nothing to his son.
Good.
And his reasoning is, if his son has the ability, he could make his own money. And if he doesn't have the ability to make his own money, he'll just be wasting the money he made. So he's just like, well, I will have enjoyed the life that I built for myself. He can do the same thing. Oh, the internet went crazy. And then there was a video making the rounds of Jackie Chan on a TV show. I don't know what the TV show was, but he was talking about how when they moved to America, the change that happened in his son. He's just like, this guy can't even stand still and talk to you. When I was his age, talking to my dad, older people, you stand up, you bow,
Right.
It's just like, this is just scratching his balls. He makes
that video
it's just like
too
this
much.
Guy. You did it? Why?
Sorry, Mr. Chan, this is the monster that you created. So you can't, it's not as if he hatched out of a Pokemon ball and now does not want to be responsible in life.
I think maybe
I'm speaking for 95% of the people who side-eye their parents and go, Come on, do I really have to work? When your father is now of means and doesn't want to leave you a thing, no, I don't
Never.
agree.
You know what I do understand from what Jackie Chan is saying? There
Mm-hmm.
there's a tension in how you are allowed to, as a parent, how far you are allowed to exert yourself and your power over your children. So we grew up with our parents having all the power. You couldn't talk back.
Yeah,
You
that's right.
couldn't say this. You had to do what they said. You had to. And now we live in an enlightened age that says you actually have to get consent from your children. They have to participate.
Oh, now your kids are in charge, and by the way, they will judge you by what the internet tells them, and a whole lot of other stuff. So you are suddenly, as a parent, you're about the third most powerful person in their life, because there are other places they can go. They can talk to their friends at 3 a.m. I mean, even parents
But
who
they
set
also
very
have
strict rules.
leverage.
And
They also
and
have
let's
leverage.
let's just take a second to also break it down from the point of view that Jackie Chan might be coming from. And I hear you, Sia. I think we have terrible parents in the world, and I would say at least half and probably more of the parents that live today are shit parents. We've got these helicopter parents. We've got these parents who can never see fault in their children. Or not you, Pumi. Don't worry. I've watched you with your son. You can be strict as hell. What I'm saying is that kids get away with whatever they want now. But what Jackie Chan might be saying is that America, because it seems to me he was also making a critique on how hard it is to raise a child in America where there are no traditional values. And we've spoken about tradition quite a few times. In fact, the last time Pumi was on, we were talking about the Zulu king and the tradition of kind of respecting your elders and all of that stuff. So I like that. I really like the idea that those traditions are valuable. They are tested by the many generations that have come before. And no matter how we think we're so much better and so much more evolved, and we've got technology that they didn't have, and we have information they didn't have, but if there isn't basic respect and there isn't an appreciation for some of those traditions in certain cultures, and I mean, America is the best example, right? Because what do people have? Religion's kind of out of the window for a lot of people, and this is coming from someone who is himself a critic of religion a lot of the time. Um, Good old values of the family values of respect and hard work and all of that stuff.
So
He's saying that doesn't exist.
But so they are, I think all those values still can be
Yeah,
instilled in children, but with a little bit of kindness. I don't know
yeah.
if you ever see on TikTok. I mean, TikTok is full
I've never
of
been on there.
it's so full of people who are emulating like their black mom. And I'm just gonna
Right,
say the
right.
black mom because I'm not sure about white moms.
Okay.
White and it's every time I see it, I get a little bit of like PTSD because I see all those scenarios. And your mother, it's like Saturday morning and your mother's been doing the washing, she just walks into your room to
Hmm.
like pack the stuff and you're just still like, I'm still sleeping. And she's like, what? You are in my house. You are still
Get
sleeping
up.
at this time.
Right.
But all of those things, it's a bordering on, it's too hard. You don't have to be that harsh. You can set a clear set of rules that say, listen, everybody wakes up by 8 o'clock or whatever, and then stick by it. Then you can still be kind and still instill that kind of discipline and
Yeah,
rules.
but you've got
You don't
experience of
have
this.
to be, yeah, it's not it's my house here.
I
You
know,
can't.
I know, but you see, you are a mom, and Sia and I are not. So we only have our own parents to go by. So we're already in our heads. We know we're one generation back from you, which is why Sia's like, these parents don't know what they're doing. But also, Sia,
Ugh. That's why
I
I'm
bet
not
you,
going by my parents, because whoa.
yeah, no, you're strict, right? They they,
See,
they
man.
didn't they didn't let you get
They've
away
done a
with
good
that.
job. Look at you. They kept you alive until you could start keeping yourself alive. You're
But
barely
also,
surviving that.
Sia knew that there were a whole lot of girls in the family who were already going to put him in his place if his parents didn't. I mean, really, your sisters didn't let you get away with shit, right?
Well, yeah, everyone didn't. Everyone did in
No.
the house. So
So if
that's
you
the
were
perks
if you
of
were
being young.
disappointing, I mean, they kept trying with girls until they eventually got you. You know, you couldn't afford to be disappointing. That's the fact. I want to play you. Let's just play this Jackie Chan clip because I think a lot of people might not have seen it, and it's long. But listen to this. I think it'll be interesting. So here's Jackie Chan.
You hit, I sue you. Yeah. Even the mom, you cannot hit the children. I'm gonna sue you. Yeah. And the all day, the teacher just, we sit there, nothing to do. The teacher, good morning, teacher. Then he look at me, come. Then I walk. No, go back. They just, no reason. Hit for you, no reason.
But is that good?
Good.
Yeah?
Of course. For the Western, it's not good. But my personal, I like this kind of training because my teacher so tough. So this why Samuel Hong, Yuan Bell, me, we all the team, we so disciplined. Yeah. I can go home, put my shoes like this. I take off my clothes. I can flow them. Even in the hotel, I mess something, I will clean it up. Yep. My son, okay? I never see the shoes put like this. One on the floor, one in the dining room. Yeah. Wearing the white shoes, running around because he don't wash his own shoes. Socks.
You give him a shot?
No, I can't. No? He sue me. When I see the old people like this, we get up, we bow, we let the chair come. My son, like this. Yeah. Then I just come. I after film 6 months, 9 months, I filming. After filming, I go home. I open the door. Hi there, how are you? When I see my dad, I get up. Right. Oh, take the tea like this. Right.
Your dad was a tough guy, wasn't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a traditional Chinese culture,
And you see value in that.
Because my son was at school in the U.S.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what you think.
Yeah.
First of all, I mean, just watching that, I kind of wonder if his son was watching because that's so embarrassing. His dad just basically said he's a complete loser on TV.
He's a brat. He's a brat.
Yeah, he's a brat. You don't agree, huh?
He's your run-of-the-mill kid who I think is beyond entitled to some fraction of the Jackie Chan dynasty. Like Jackie Chan has been around since the beginning of time, in my opinion. And so he has oodles and oodles of money. And if I have grown up as a Chan, excuse me, I need some money. How dare I? Who's going to pick up my shoes? Or okay, well, look, right. I'm joking and I'm being extreme, but you can't just tell me that. You can't tell me I've grown up as a Chan and then as soon as my father dies, I have to move out of this house and then I now have to. No, it's you made this monster, Jackie. I'm sorry.
Well, Steph agrees with you, CS. Steph says, I agree. It is your son, Jackie. Sort it out. Uncle Potse says, you must beat the children. You see, this is like some traditional values putting in there from Uncle Potse.
Yes, beat the children and then also stand up for the repercussions of that.
Steph is on fire this morning because Steph is also saying these problem children usually grow into normal adults. I don't know about that.
But he should have moved out by now. He should have moved out by now, made his own life, found his own thing in life. Yeah. If he was looking like he's trying, not just waiting for his dad's stuff. Like, what? That is right.
Make an effort. Earn it. Live up to it. I mean, we've been talking a lot about Prince Philip since he died. Just like when we were talking about King Goodwill and Prince Philip. This guy was born into a life of privilege, but he also there was some deprivation when he was a kid because they kind of lost everything, and his dad did go off with the mistress and live in the south of France. His mother did go mad, but he was a prince, so he could have been born into a world where he didn't have to do anything except be a prince, and he could have lived this life of like a playboy. But the guy was reading every day. He learned to fly. He learned to sail. He learned to read. He learned to write.
They also sent him to that school that was made to, like, the whole premise of the school.
Toughen him up.
To toughen up children born of privilege.
That guy who started that school is a guy called Kurt Han, and he believed he believed that it wasn't so much just education that made a kid. And, if you compare this to what a lot of schools do now, I think there's huge merit in this. He said, you need to develop character, not just come out clever. He said, it's fine to learn mathematics and science and English and, history and all of those things. Those are important things to learn as subjects. But he says, what you want is to come out of my school with character. You want to have a personality. You want to have a backbone. You want to have a hard work ethic. You want to have all. Now who's teaching kids?
That school. I would send my child to that school.
I would too. Who's teaching kids? Who's teaching kids that at the moment? Like, who's teaching kids how to have a work ethic? They have to buy a business book with Richard Branson on the cover. And
your parents
trust me,
should.
Your parents do, and your parents try, but it needs to be reinforced. It needs to be reinforced in the peer environment. Like, don't take me there with this. It needs to be reinforced in the peer environment. If you're the only person whose parents are enforcing all of those things in your life, you're very likely to rebel against it because you're like, nobody else lives like this. Nobody else lives like this. This doesn't work for anybody else. So it's hard for you to kind of stick to it.
But especially
in a school environment, where everybody around you has the same set of rules, you don't feel like the odd one out. This is just how children are, especially teenagers.
I think it's a good point. Pumi's a mother, Sia. You can pull that face as much as you like, but she's got real experience in this. And Busted Sana says...
I'm a child. I also have experience in this.
Busted Sana says she agrees with Jackie Chan. He's not lying. Straight facts. Linda says, and this is the point that brought on this conversation. Linda says, we live in a time where it's easier to replace something than it is to fix it, relationships included. That is true. Instead of fixing the shovel when it breaks, because I remember when I was growing up, we had one spade and one shovel, and those things were masking taped. They were resoldered. The handle of the thing became shorter and shorter. We didn't throw it out and go and buy a new one.
But now it's actually cheaper.
Yeah,
now it's cheaper to just and that is part of the thing that makes you kind of go, why fix it? It's cheaper to just buy a new one. Just throw this one out and get a new one.
And easier, yes.
Ruth says parents are very often to blame, but they're also just human and they're trying their best. And Cizi says, Jackie Chan said if he is capable of making his own money, he's capable of making his own money. If not, he will just be wasting mine. That's exactly right. That's what we were discussing. And Lenice says, also, parents are lazy and taking the easy road out, trying to avoid conflict. And it takes two parents with the same set of rules. Yeah, it does. It does. That's very hard. Annette, of course, agreeing with Pumi because they're in the same category here.
Yeah.
And Tracy's making a good point. Some kids are just assholes.
This is a true story. This is a true story. Tracy, yes.
Okay, operative term there being some.
Yeah, some kids.
I wouldn't say most. I'd say some.
Sergio.
Although there is an age group where they most are.
Yeah, no, certainly. When they're about 3, they are all mostly assholes. And when they're teenagers, they're all mostly assholes. So Sergio says something interesting here. He says private schools are part of the problem with these brats. Parents amplify the problem. I mean, it used to be, Pumi, wasn't it always that, and I remember this from when I was at school, I was the one on the one side and my parents and the teachers were together on the other side. Like they would support each other. My parents would go to parents' evenings and they'd come back to me and unload a torrent of abuse on me. Like, your teacher says you're not working hard. Your teacher says you're back chatting. Your teacher says you're a little shit. And I'd go like, oh shit, there's no way I can drive a wedge between my parents and my teachers. These days, kids go home, they tell their parents, my teacher's an asshole, my teacher's this, my teacher's that. And the parents take the kid's side rather than the teacher's side.
A very profuse, strongly worded email to the principal.
Yeah. Why is my child not a prefect? Why didn't my child get a participation trophy? Why didn't my child get 98 in maths, even though he only wrote half the exam? Parents think their kids are so perfect and they want their kids to be amazing, and they don't want to ever let them down. They don't ever want to break them down or say something that'll hurt their little fragile egos. Meanwhile, the only way you learn that stuff is to fail and to realize you're not the best and you got to work harder. So I'm kind of with Sergio on this one. I think that's a very good point.
I'm
And I
not
think
sure
these
if it's
schools,
just the
especially
private
these,
schools.
but these
I'm
elite
not sure if
schools,
it's just the private schools, though.
Pums, I think it's largely the private schools, because there's this idea that if your little preshie goes to the right school and makes the right connections, that they'll grow up and they won't need to struggle to find jobs. And we know how a network can help, right? So a lot of parents.
I'm just remembering earlier
think
this
this is
year.
just, they think that once their kid is in the school, then they don't have to worry anymore. Their work is done.
See, you're distracting us with that, whatever you're moisturizing your lips with.
What are you moisturizing with this? Yeah. What are you doing? Come on, show us. What do you got going on?
I was listening. I'm not being distracting. I was listening.
No,
but
I'm distracted. Hold on. I'm distracted because Pumi needs to know this. Sia admitted he's got 7 different kinds of moisturizer the other day. I think that's just for his face, or is that for everything?
No, that's for everything. That's for everything.
Yes, 7 different ones.
Jeez, Sia. Jeez.
And I still think I look a little pale this morning. This is really bad.
I feel like, because I only had like 3.5 hours of sleep. I could not get to sleep last night. I was reading.
Why?
Put down the book. I don't know. 3.5 hours of sleep.
Did you go to bed at 2?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah.
Then you start stressing about the fact that you have to wake up soon, and the stress doesn't let you go back to sleep. Yeah.
I kept trying to go back to sleep, and then I would lie there, and then you turn this way, and then you turn that way, and then I just couldn't get to sleep. So I'm going to need to like crash at some point today. But this is the nice thing about lockdown, right? If nothing else happened that's good, is I can say, oh, I've got a Zoom meeting at 4:00 this afternoon, and actually have a little doo-doos for like an hour.
It's a little siesta.
That's my plan.
I actually, you know what? I'm so over people not being at work. People must just go back to work. People must just go back to the office, go back to work, because nobody is in a single place. You cannot get anybody to be accountable for anything because, I have to phone so-and-so, because they can't just go to their desk and check up on them.
Yeah,
they're not answering their phone. I don't know where so-and-so is. I am so over it. I'm so over it. People must just go back to the office.
Well, see, Pumi
and
doesn't
then they do what they do.
Pumi doesn't just want to.
I'm going to sleep.
Yeah, well, listen, I'm at least I'm admitting it because I've got nothing to hide here, and I run my own thing. So,
the screen is off, the mic is on mute, and you're like, is this person still here? Are you listening to what I'm saying in this Zoom meeting?
I just want to quickly go to three or four comments here, just to bring a little more into the discussion that Pumi and Sia and I are having this morning about parents and teachers and private schools and privilege and hard work and all that stuff. So Mfundo, who is a teacher and who worked with us at Cliff Central for a while, he's now teaching full time. He says you can't even shout at these kids. The next day, the parent is waiting for you at the gate with a pan. Lol. Well, see?
With the pan is a little extreme.
But I'm telling you, like these parents threaten all kinds of shit if they don't get their way with the teachers. And then Riali Boja says, my parents would always tell my teachers to beat me. That's the opposite. You see, that's mine too. My dad would say to the teachers at the school, if he gives you any trouble, just hit him.
Oh. That's when people were allowed to hit kids. Now they sue.
I know. And it ends up on the news. Ted de Boer says, parents aren't always lazy. So this is in contrast to what someone was saying earlier. These days, it takes double the amount of work to give them lives that they deserve, leaving a lot less time available to spend with the kids because you have to graft. Yes, but again, I think that's because, to open this discussion, I was saying material stuff has become so much more important. You need money so much more than anything else in this modern world. And I think maybe that's part of the problem. Anyway, we do have to leave it there, everybody, so we could come up with a couple more of the major discussions around this in a short while. But for now, we've got to get to the headlines. So let's do that straight away. You want to know what's happening in the world? Well, you come to the right place, and we're going to give you a quick look at some of the headlines, some of the current affairs, some of the things that are going on in the world that you need to be paying attention to. First of all, from News 24, a reluctant Malema confronts the SCA judge candidate over EFF Trevor Manuel defamation case. This is interesting. A reluctant. Yeah, it says in inverted commas. it says in inverted commas, a reluctant Julius Malema, a member of the JSC. I don't know how he could be on the JSC when there are so many cases that he has displayed open contempt for the independence of the judiciary, this guy. Anyway, he said on Wednesday when they're appointing judges at the moment, and he questioned SCA judge candidate Elias Matlojane over his decision to award Trevor Manuel $500,000 in damages in a defamation case against the EFF. So, of course, to Julius, it becomes personal. He found against the EFF, this judge Matlojane, ruling that the party paid the former finance minister R500,000 for claiming he oversaw a corrupt process to appoint Revenue Commissioner Edward Kieswetter. Of course, he didn't. It wasn't a corrupt process. They went through the evidence. The judge ruled. And listen, nobody's completely objective, but if you don't believe that the judiciary is independent and that they should be above politics and they should be able to rule in things like this, then don't have a judiciary. Just let's create a dictatorship where whoever's in charge gets to decide everything for everyone and there's no possible appeal. Anyway, Malema, who's also a leader of the EFF, admitted he was reluctant to question the judge because he was an interested party in the matter. He said, I know that Manuel is now appealing to the SCA, but they've referred that matter back to you and said there must be more oral evidence led. So whatever figure you arrive at is on the basis of that oral evidence. Matlojane said, Mark Twain said nothing spoils a good story more than the arrival of an eyewitness. The matter is pending before the Constitutional Court, and I don't think the Chief Justice is interested in my musings. So my answer to you, Mr. Malema, is that I cannot second-guess the decision that is going to be made by the Constitutional Court. Malema responded, fair enough. So in some ways,
it was a good answer.
Yeah, I think that's a good answer. I'm glad that it came up because
nothing
it forced.
Like Daya
Yeah, absolutely.
Nothing
absolutely.
Like Daya Pile's responses.
Yeah, I remember that. I'm prepared to go to prison, says Jacob Zuma. This is according to ENCA this morning. Former President Jacob Zuma has written to the Chief Justice saying he's prepared to go to prison. In a strongly worded letter, Zuma says he has a duty to protect his constitutional rights, even at the risk of being imprisoned. He's also accused the country's highest court of abusing its power by taking away his constitutional rights. He claims that the Zondo Commission of Inquiry has become a complex project controlled by his political foes. But when you were the political foe of so many people and you were tearing down institutions, Jacob, you didn't bring up the Constitution once, did you? Suddenly, because not
going your way. Power.
Correct. So, I mean, anybody on the show this morning have a little bit of sympathy for Gedlehle? Raise your hand. No, didn't think so.
What? Let's just wait for maybe a few stragglers. Oh, okay, no one does.
No, I think we can move on. And this is interesting. Edward Kieswetter is hitting hard. He says small tax errors can now land you with a fine or even worse, send you to jail due to legislation which has a list of minor offenses you need to avoid. These include failure to alert SARS of changes in your personal details. Yeah. If you don't update your address and your phone number and your business address and all that stuff, SARS can actually fine you or put you in jail. And if you don't keep records from previous tax years and they ask for those records, jail. He says, yeah, I know. He says I know what you're going to say, Sia. He says many commentators with some degree of sensationalism, as well are projecting a scenario where the state will have a free-for-all against taxpayers, he said. The state must prove blameworthiness beyond a reasonable doubt. No taxpayer will be compromised in terms of their rights. But he's basically saying to you, you know what, you better make sure you're ready to pay your tax. And if you don't, we're coming to get you.
And also just wanting to get money and scare you in any way, shape, or form.
Kieswetter is gonna get you. He is gonna get you. Kieswetter is gonna get you.
Hey,
there's a row there somewhere. Where's the row?
Oh, I hate SARS. I hate SARS. I really do. Now, this is so complicated, but what's going on with David Cameron? Does anyone understand this?
No.
So according to, this is from the BBC, David Cameron has said he will respond to any requests from MPs to give evidence about Green Silk Capital. He is facing criticism for lobbying on behalf of the finance firm, which has recently collapsed. It sparked a wider row over private companies' attempts to influence ministers and officials. So they're basically going through what we went through when companies that were run by the Guptas were starting to influence politics in a nasty way. And obviously, I don't think theirs is on the scale that the Guptas was on, but maybe it was. Maybe this company, Greensill Capital, which seems to have gone bust, was leveraging politicians. We know this happens, right? And this is awkward for Cameron because he obviously, resigned as prime minister, probably thought, okay, now I can get on with my life. What happens? You're in this really interesting place when you're a former prime minister or a former president, because you can influence things in the direction that you want to. You can make your influence felt, right? And he may just have overstepped the line there. Maybe he has. Maybe he's done some things that are dodgy, and they're going to find out. They're going to call him in. They're going to do a commission of inquiry, and let's see what happens. On the other hand, he says he's got nothing to hide. So, but what politician is ever going to admit, oh, no, I have everything to hide?
And I'm just going to keep it hidden as much as I can.
And finally, Kamala Harris has announced that she will visit Mexico and Guatemala as part of her mission to address the root causes of immigration at the southern border. For the longest
She's
time,
going to Mexico.
What does she always say to Joe?
We did it, Joe. Gotta be the next president of the United States.
Yeah. So Kamala she's been avoiding going to the border, and people have been giving her a very hard time in America because they've said, you know what? You should be speaking about this. You should be going to visit these people. Instead, she stayed in Washington. And now she's decided she's going to go and visit the actual countries that these immigrants are coming from. So she spoke to some reporters. She said she planned to visit the border as well, but they're going to do what they can to tackle the migrant surge. I'm going to try and do it as well as Sia, but he does it better. We must address the symptoms.
You can't do it better than Sia, guys.
No, he's got it. We must address the symptoms, and that is what is happening with a team of folks working on the border. She told reporters her task is different. She said, our goal is to deal with the root cause, and I'm happy. I'm looking forward to be traveling and what may be hopefully my first trip to the Northern Triangle, stopping first in Mexico and then Guatemala. In March, the number of undocumented migrants apprehended at the southern border rose 71% over the previous month. It's just unbelievable what's going on there.
So,
and let's not pretend it isn't Biden's policies that is making these people think they can get across the border and making it an attractive proposition.
But it's the root cause. I'd be interested to know what they think the root cause is. I wonder if they watch things like Narcos or read anything about what's happening in South America. No, because it feels like fiction, Sia. It feels like fiction when you watch it on Netflix. But the reality is that all that South America, the economies are bad. In fact, most of their economies are premised either on a drug trade of some sort. The politicians are corrupt. People have tough lives, and the politicians are corrupt, and the gangsters are in control. People are just trying to get a better life. The root cause, and America is not blameless in the potting out of South American governments.
Yeah, but you hinted at something like Mexico is totally run on the drug trade, and the border is controlled by these drug gangsters. So first of all, if you stop the drug war, you will already add a whole lot less pressure to that border if you stop the drug war. Number two, you've got to talk tough about these things. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are not talking tough. They're saying, if you want to come, come. Now, Trump said the opposite, and it stopped a lot of people in their tracks. They said, okay, if we're going to be arrested or our kids are going to be detained at the border, or there's not going to be this catch and release situation, which there is now, then we're not going to take the chance. But what's happening?
Kind of talking about scare tactics, or scare tactics on top of policies.
It really matters what you say, what your attitude is. There are a lot of migrants who will take a chance anyway, regardless of what you say, right? But most people, if you say to them, listen, you talk tough. You say, if you're going to cross this border, we will arrest you. Then a lot of people will be put off, or they'll think about doing it legally. Because I don't think anyone in the world has a problem with legal migration. And if you do, it's going to be very difficult for you. I mean, you know how many immigrants Japan gives citizenship to every year? 0. You know how many people have been granted Japanese citizenship in the last 10 years? If they were born outside the country, even if they marry into someone, if they marry someone in the country, you know how many people get Japanese citizenship? 0. 0. They don't let you in, like from that point of view. So Japan has no migrant problem. They have lots of other problems. But if you say to people, sure, come on down, or don't come now, but come in a month's time, which is what the Alejandro Majores, or whatever his name is, the secretary of what is it, like the human settlements, effectively in America at the moment. What is his name? I've just forgotten it. I'll look it up.
Talking about.
Anyway, I saw him in a news conference the other night, and he was saying, look, we want you to come, but don't come now. What you got to say to people is, if you're going to come to America, come legally. If you don't come legally, we will chase you out, we will arrest you, and we will send you back to where you came.
Are you talking about Alejandro Mayorkas?
Mayorkas, yeah, exactly. Thank you. That's the guy.
The United States Secretary of Homeland Security.
Homeland Security, that's him. Thank you, Sia. Thank God I've got Sia there to fact check me and to back up the info. Anyway, look,
well,
I mean, we're not going to
solve
this.
We're
not going to solve this problem. But to be honest with you, I don't think Kamala Harris going to visit Guatemala is going to solve anything either. It's all kabuki theater. It's all show. It's all putting on a show. That's what politicians most of the time do. That is the news for this morning. We got lots of other stuff on the agenda. We're going to get to the burning platform at 7 o'clock this morning in about 10 minutes' time. And we're going to be joined by Dumo Denga, who has been with us for a while before. He's been a regular returning champion on the burning platform. And that's, of course, brought to you by Nando's. It's at 7 o'clock this morning. Exciting stuff. What did I call it earlier? The burning in Tlemeza. And then we went into a whole thing about burning in Tlemeza and what he's up to. Be careful what you bring up, huh? I've got. I'm going to. You know, before lockdown in March last year, I went to a wedding the weekend before Cyril locked the country down, and it was one of those weddings where there was no alcohol at all because there was a complete ban on alcohol already at that stage at any venues. It all had to be wrapped up by midnight, I think, was the curfew at the beginning of that. And it was the strangest thing. I mean, it was a great wedding. It was very good friends of mine. There were a whole lot of people there that I knew. But it was the last wedding I've been to. And I know that there have been people who've got married in the last year. But I haven't been to any weddings in the last year. And I'm going to a wedding on Saturday. So it'll be the first one. Well, yeah, it'll be the first one since lockdown for me. And I'm kind of excited to see how it goes.
You know, Gareth, I'm so fascinated at the number of people around you who you go to a lot of weddings, like whether it's on your Instagram. I am so fascinated because
maybe.
Yeah. And I was thinking about it the other day because you kind of go into cycles, you know, our lives have cycles, right? So there's a cycle when all your friends are getting married and it's all around the same time. That's because of the way that everybody matures. And then you have a whole cycle of baby showers. Then you have a whole cycle of kids' parties, you know. And I am now firmly in the teenage party scene.
But you know what, Pumps? I mean, it's like there are a couple of reasons for that. I've always tried really hard, and I think that this was helped along by DJing for 12 years. In clubs and things, because I was forced to mix with people who were much younger than me. I also have friends who are much older than me. I mean, I can honestly tell you I have a wide range of friends. They go from anywhere in their mid-20s to their 60s and 70s. And I like to do that. I mean, you'll see me at lunch sometimes, back in the old days when we used to just do lunch all the time or whatever it was. You'll see me sitting with like a rabbi in his 70s. And you'll think, what the hell are those two talking about? Because... No, we don't look like we're meant to be spending time with each other. And then, you know, I'll be out with friends and like someone who's 24 will come up and start talking to me about something. And you learn so many things if you keep your friend base wide. And also that's probably why it looks like I've been to so many weddings, But I'm kind of picky. Hey, I don't go to all the weddings. Weddings, you have to demarcate quite a lot of time if you go to a wedding, and you don't want to do that for people that you don't like. It can be you have to dress up, you have to take a present, you have to. Sometimes they have these incredibly irritating weddings out of the province or out of the country, and those you have to think about because the expense goes up. But I do love them because I think if you're there for someone's wedding, it's one of those moments that if those people matter to you and you matter to them, then it's part of your life story, you know. So I like going to those. I think Gareth loves DJing at weddings, says Corona's boring burnt alien thing. I'm sure he loves the song requests. I have never DJ'd at a wedding. That's something I would
really.
Well, there are standard wedding playlists, and you have to play things like "Celebrate Good Times." Come on,
That's because weddings have such a wide range of people.
Right.
There's like little people and very old people, and you have to play stuff that gets at least some of the people dancing some of the time.
Yeah.
You can't
Super hot sticks, my booze. You have to play.
You can't just be drum and bassing it up.
You have to play Brenda Fassi. You have to play Dexy's Midnight Runners and Come On Eileen. You have to play.
Oh no.
No,
my
you do.
Galakata
you have to play because then also the white and the black people at the wedding all dance together. It's all great. I mean, like there's a wedding playlist that everybody has.
So my brother's getting married, but we're having a traditional wedding ceremony. So we've got people who are singers, like wedding songs. Not like traditional wedding songs. So not
That's
like
great.
Brenda Fassie stuff, because it's the traditional aspect. It's the welcoming home of the bride that we have.
Oh my!
It's very
but
exciting.
Look, there must be
losing her mind.
There must be a personal line that you draw for yourself. With me, there are two things that I just will not do ever, ever, ever. And that is, I'll never MC a party or some sort of a festival. I'm just not that person. Give me a podium, a lectern, a corporate event, an agenda. If you ever see me MC a party, just know something has gone horribly wrong. To go, what's happening at the back there? Is everyone all right? Let's go to the left. That will just never be me. And similarly, I've said it to my family, I'll never MC a family function. There's also a different type of skill there. You need to be more fast-paced, punchy. They actually expect you to be funny. And I'm not a, I can say things that are funny, but I don't think I'm a straight-out funny person. So I'd never do that. So DJing at weddings, I get
a family function, you're not really an MC at a family function. You're more, and I keep thinking, I wonder what the English word is, but the Zulu word, umqhubi wohlelo. So you're shepherding the program.
You're a convener. That's what you are.
Yeah,
that word means.
Shepherding the program.
Convener. Yeah.
Let me boil it down. That means you are teaching your aunt how to hold a microphone because she has it in her hand. No. That's why I just stay away. Those are my boundaries.
Well, while we're talking about wedding music, chicken dance says Phil Stain. Claudia says cha-cha slide. Oh, yeah. Lenice says, don't forget David Hasselhoff. Did people play David Hasselhoff?
Has music?
Oh, he has lots of music, but it's horrible music.
Yes.
Horrible music.
Is it from Baywatch? Is the music from Baywatch?
Here's an interesting one. JP said, no, it's mostly in German, Pumi, funnily enough. That's where he's a big music. Yeah, he's a huge music star in Germany. But the Germans, as you and I know, while they have amazing things going for them, and we're talking very stereotypically, the Germans are terrific at a lot of things. One thing that is absolutely abysmal is German music taste. So never
what
ask
did
Germans.
Rammstein ever do to you?
No, please. JP says, I invite people to my wedding who would go to my funeral. Others stay at home. Yeah, I think that's about right. You've got to draw the line somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And don't you think that in some ways Corona kind of forced people to make their weddings smaller and to think about who really matters? So you have to cull all the hangers on, which is not a bad thing, right?
Do you remember
use
the
Corona.
couple that got arrested at their wedding? I wonder what happened to
Yes,
them.
what was KZN?
What in
What happened?
KZN? Remember that the lockdown rules were events were prohibited, and this couple had planned their event, obviously, like months in advance, whatever, and they carried on. They went ahead and had in some rural area in KZN, went ahead and had the event, and somebody snitched. One of those busybody neighbors, somebody snitched, called the police. The police arrived. There were pictures of the bride in her like white dress being shoved into the back of the. I wonder whatever happened to them. They should sue the state.
I would if they arrested me at my own wedding. I mean, you've got a story for the rest of your life, right? That's going to be a really good story when your grandkids come along. You'll be like, "What happened to you at your wedding, Grandma?" Well, the government arrested us. That's a good story. This is a couple of things quickly before we wrap up this hour. Thank goodness for live stream weddings. It's saving us all time and money. People do this. I mean, we've all seen a live stream funeral, right?
Yeah, a funeral makes sense, right?
Lee says she's been to a live stream wedding. I'd love to know how that works.
I wouldn't go to a live stream wedding.
Steph says, yes, reminds me of the wedding singer. Well, all those songs are the same songs at any wedding. That is true. Yes. And Ruth has a point to make about something that only me and Mogoeng care about. But today is Yom Ha'atzmaut, which is the celebration of Israel's independence. So if anybody is a supporter of Israel as I am, then that's a day worthy of celebration. So it's really just me and Mogoeng. Ruth, don't expect too many other people to join our little party. I'm sorry. Okay. This is from yesterday. You missed this, Pumi. There was some action yesterday on the show, but Tabo says, I finally got to see Sia's face during Gareth and Damon's fight yesterday. Priceless.
You guys, yes. Man, you mustn't.
Yes.
No, don't get involved with this woman anymore. Just don't. Actually, they're fine.
Good fight.
The two of them are fine. They like it.
You know, it's like when you have those siblings who just get on each other's last nerve for any reason. You guys.
No, Damon
just get along. Why can't we all just get along?
Damon got so hysterical and crazy yesterday. Actually, I had to chase him off. I cut him off the show. And then later on, when things had calmed down, he came back. And I said, you know what, you're welcome back, Damon. And he apologized. And he said, yeah, I did kind of lose it. But it was fun. It was really good to listen to. I enjoyed it thoroughly. I listened back yesterday and I was laughing. So.
Okay.
All right, it is 7, and it is time for us to get on with the burning platform, which is next. CliffCentral.com, Pumi Mashiko is with us, and we will be joined by Dumo Denga, and it's all brought to you by Nando's next.
Do you grunt when getting out of the car? Creak when getting out of bed? Do you walk into a room and forget why? Are you having trouble in the sack? Is the hump in a slump? Join me, Chris Avon-Smith, and Dr. Mark on the T-Health Show every Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. where we talk to medical and allied professionals about those serious and not so serious medical lifestyle issues. The T-Health Show, sponsored by the T-Clinic. The T-Health Show is available on podcasts. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen.
That girl is a shooting star. You're wishing on, you're wishing. That girl is a neon heart. You're switching on, you're switching in your mind.
The Bitcoin market can be unpredictable. Instead, invest in a great economic quarter by using a bit of your coin to get a Nando's quarter chicken and any single side for only 49 Rand. Nando.
All right, it is time for us to get to the burning platform this morning, and I did call it the burning Ntlemaza earlier, but it sometimes is. It's sometimes a little bit like him. This morning, Pumi Mashigo and Dumo Denga, who's been on with us before on the burning platform. Nando's are the people who make it possible every single week, and thank goodness for them. They're the only people brave enough in South Africa to actually have open, honest discussions about politics, about current affairs, about society, about the economy, all the stuff that matters. So, Dumo, welcome back. It's nice to see you again. How are you?
I'm good, and you, Gareth? Hope everything is well on your side. And yeah, good to be here.
That's a very professional setup he's got there. Hey, Pumi, he's got the microphone and the headphone. This guy has learned during lockdown.
So many people come up, and I was like, whoa.
Yeah. No, Dumo, I mean, like, you can't do meetings and things in a professional way in 2021 if you haven't learned something during lockdown about like basic, equipment. Like, and this stuff is essential now. It's not as if only broadcasters have to have it. Am I right?
Right. That's true.
Although, Dumo, is that a racing seat you're in?
Yeah, yes.
Wow, he's even got a racing seat. Look at that. Monza. Yo. All right, so let's
hold on tight. It's going to be a bumpy ride.
It's also because you have your own podcast, and it is called the ManPatria podcast. You are a libertarian. You're a former member of the Capitalist Party, which our friend Canthan, by the way, Pumi, we've had so many people requesting Canthan's return. And I think you've also been pushing for that for a while. I've got good news on that front. Canthan, he's now the primary caregiver in his house because his wife is working as hard as he is, but he has to do the school run, and that's why he hasn't been able to join us for a while. But he will be back, and he will rejoin the Burning Platform for an episode very, very soon. Stick around for that. So, just up front, can I start with some feedback? And we like to know where we're heading. Yeah, so this is from Jonathan, who listens to us. And he's written a very nice email saying, listen, I listen to less of the Burning Platform than I used to, and here are the reasons for that. Please invite some of the following people on and take it as constructive feedback. He says, can you get JP Landman on your show? He spins a very different narrative to what you and Pumi and the other guests do spin. I think he would be a breath of fresh air on your show, so I think that's a great idea. We'll try and get JP Landman on. Can we be creative and constructive about job creation? A while ago, I read an article that showed that for every one engineer added to the workforce, 15 lower-level jobs could be created. That's just one example. Can you get someone who could talk along those lines? Not this waffle crap that you guys come up with about we need to be creative. What the hell does that mean? Let's work it out. Do we need more engineers, more welders, more lawyers? No, not these people. What skills we need, and how can we attract people? Let's have that conversation. And have you listened to the Realignment podcast? It's a great podcast, and you could do worse things than trying to emulate that. All right, he says, despite my tone, I continue to root for you guys, and I'm really glad you're achieving the rating success that you have. Well, Jonathan, I promise you every bit of feedback is helpful, especially when it's constructive, and I think that is. So Pumi and I don't get upset when we get these emails. We love it.
I love that email. Email. I went to look for JP Lackman, and
yes.
I went looking last night.
So don't worry now. I won't be the only one applying pressure to Sia to get him, because now Pumi's going to be on the case as well. All right, Dumo. First of all, let's just start off with some of the things that you've been doing lately. You think that at the moment the left is saturated and very well represented in South Africa, adding that a new left party will just split the ANC and EFF vote further. But when leftist policies are voted on, people will vote in favor of it unanimously. That's interesting. Is that the state of the left? Because Pumi said for a long time now, Pums, I do listen to you intently. Pumi said the problem with the left at the moment is they're out of ideas. It's not so much a question of representation, but there's nothing new. Do you still stand by that, Pums, before we let Dumo answer?
I do.
Okay.
I do. So I have one small question before, Dumo, you answer that. So are you a right-leaning libertarian or are you a left-leaning? Which one are you, left or right?
I would say that I lean more on the right, but that's when it comes to obviously economics. When it comes to social issues, I'm more of a centrist type of person. So, for example, if you had to ask me, okay, Dumo, what do you think about, let's say, if you say same-sex marriage, for example, I would just say, well, I'll just let them do it. Simple as that. I won't stop people from doing that. But when it comes to economics, I'm more on the right. Yeah,
Okay.
That's what I would say.
I think that's an important distinction to make, because we talk a lot on this show about the left and the right, and people don't often know what those distinctions mean. So maybe, Dumo, you can give us your impression of what the left in South Africa actually means, maybe even how it's different in your mind to the left in America or in Europe or anywhere else. And then we'll start with that, and we'll work out whether or not we've been categorizing people properly, first of all. And then we can talk about the politics and the party politics of that too, because I don't think we've even gone into these definitions on the show before.
Right.
So let's start with that.
Right. So, I mean, if you had to look at me and what I stand for, people would say that I'm a classical liberal, and I would say that they are correct. And now, if you look at the left in the United States, they call themselves liberals, and this is one of the biggest confusions ever. Because when I say I'm a liberal, a lot of people, even in South Africa, who have been influenced by American politics, think I'm a lefty, and I'm like, no. We have to make that distinction. So classical liberalism, I mean, it's all about freedom and so forth. And obviously the left has kind of owned the word liberal. And then in the United States, that's why they've come up with the word libertarian, to try and kind of save the liberal term. So, and also when it comes to categorizations, I also think that people, I think we tend to be quick to categorize people, because people, if you say that I'm a lefty,
well, it's convenient. You can pile a whole lot of good or bad things onto someone just by putting them in that category, right?
Right. I mean, and even the word conservative as well. I mean, I remember the one time when Joe Biden won the election, and I said earlier that Joe Biden was going to win. A friend of mine texted me and said, "Oh yeah, what do you think about Joe Biden's win? I need to win. You're a conservative." I'm like, "No, I'm not. I'm a libertarian." Yes.
Yeah.
I may have liked Trump. Yeah.
But the words are also hijacked. I mean, if you think conservatism today, you almost think racist, right? However, conservatives used to be the Republican Party, and the Republican Party freed slaves. So
exactly.
if you think about what the word actually means and where it started and what it means today, there's a lot of misinformation. So people, have hijacked all these terms.
I want to give you the textbook definition that we learned in political science at Varsity, and it may have changed dramatically. So you must please correct me after I've given you what they taught me. So they used to teach us there was a spectrum. And on the left, it went from the extreme left was what you call radicals. And it would move in from radicals to leftists, from leftists into liberals, but in terms of economic policy and that kind of thing. Centrists are in the middle. Then you ended up with conservatives who were opposite to liberals. Then you ended up with reactionaries, who were people who were extreme right wingers, and then obviously you end up with your extreme right wing, which is usually like nationalist movements and ethnic movements and those kinds of things. So that's what they taught us, and what they said was that mostly, your liberals tend to be more open, your conservatives tend to be more strict. Conservatives believe in traditional values. They often tie things in with religion. They often tie things in with the letter of the law, order, constitutionality, that kind of thing. The left are more interested in personal freedoms, in the ability to create institutions that look after the poor, for example, and those kinds of things have got a bit blurry over the last few years. But do you think largely you can still apply that definition to those groups?
Okay,
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if you can. I think context is everything, and where we are. Our context here in South Africa is so wide and so polarized that, and also, unfortunately, the people who lead these conversations, so our politicians, also revel in the ignorance of people. They use that to their advantage, so they spew out these catchphrases. And a lot of people just take it as gospel. You're lucky, Gareth, in that you had political science as at university level. Most of South Africans don't get to have political science at university level, not even in high school level.
Trust me, it's a good thing. It was a complete waste of time to have studied that nonsense.
I don't think so. It gives you a foundation. It gives you a foundation, and the right and the good thing about university, and unfortunately not everybody can go to university, is it gives you an opportunity to apply rigor to your reasoning. It applies rigor to your reasoning, so you can fight about it. You can redefine these things. You can research. You can read. That's what we lack most of the time.
I've already got a feeling, and Dumo, I want you to answer as well because I haven't given you a chance yet. But if I don't throw this in, I'm going to forget. I've got a feeling this is going to be a different kind of burning platform today because we are talking a little bit more about the structure and the actual systems, and I think that's important every now and then. Why I bring this up is because maybe part of our education in this country, and we were talking in the first hour, Pimps, about education and how important it is and how character and personality are probably more important than academics on their own, subjects. But maybe one of the subjects that we should be doing, if we would like to engender in people in South Africa a better understanding of politics, is something like civics. Maybe we should have people attend a class in public schools. You can't make private schools do this, but you can make public schools do it. And I think it would be valuable, where they learn about not patriotism and nationalism. Those would be very destructive and dangerous things for a state to inculcate into children. In fact, it would be a kind of indoctrination. We don't want that. But what I mean when I say civics is that people should learn what the Constitutional Court is, how it came about, why it matters, what they do in the Constitutional Court, how the legislature operates, how people vote, what voting rights are people entitled to. How do we vote municipally as opposed to for a president? How do the political parties work? Not necessarily the ideology, because that kind of thing I think they can find by watching the news, but how the system works, so that if you have a grievance with your local politician, you know how, as an adult, to deal with them. How tax works, I think, would be a really useful thing for people to learn at school. And maybe these are the things that are missing that shouldn't be university level things. These should be taught to kids when they are still young so that they can learn that they're part of a polity and that they have a responsibility as much as they have a right in a society like ours. What do you think?
I mean, if you think about the what is the word, hullabaloo that was created a couple of days ago because of a short clip. I think it's about a 16 seconds of a clip of a lecture by Lwazi Lushaba, Dr. Lwazi Lushaba from UCT. Oh my goodness. And when he was put on the spot, I listened to an interview that they had with him. Besides the fact that this is 16 seconds of a 2-hour lecture that he had with first-year political science students, suddenly it's in the public domain and everybody and their aunt's cat have something to say about it with very little foundational information. But that's what happens. Our politicians, we're lucky if they've got a first degree at this point.
So Dumo, now on all of that, you have as much time as you want to to touch on everything Pumi and I have not given you a chance so far to do.
Sorry.
Right. No, it's all good. It's all good. I liked listening to that conversation. Let's just talk about the civics. Civics is a great idea. I think we should have some sort of that education at some point in someone's life. However, I do feel that people in society just don't know how to think critically. So it's one thing to teach people a process, but it's another thing to teach people how to think. So I also think that, in my opinion, that people should actually learn the basics of philosophy, just learn how to think logically. That is very key, because even in my development in getting into like political science and libertarianism and stuff like that, the one key thing was philosophy. Without philosophy, I don't know where I would be if I didn't even. And and the funny story is that, like, how I got into it. I studied a BCom, and I needed an extra credit, a second year credit, to actually get into the next year. So I ran to the humanities department because they had a bad rap for just saying, man, you can study this, you can study anthropology, this and that, and you'll be fine. So then then I saw the philosophy department and I was really impressed by what they had. So I took social and political philosophy, and then from there it took off. So, and I won't lie, from there, I think, I learned a lot. I learned how to think, everything like that, and my whole world changed. And that's what I think South Africans need. They just need to learn how to think, how to question things. It may be uncomfortable, but let's try question it. Let's have that good discussion. And if we can have that discussion, we may not agree on certain points, but at least we'll understand each other's positions. And then it goes back to what Dr. Lwazi Lushaba was saying. So, I mean, I'm one of those who saw the 16-second clip, sorry. And obviously, when I looked at that, I was taken aback. But then what was the first question I asked myself? I said, okay, what is he trying to say here? Just based on that, what could he possibly be saying? And I got certain possibilities, but again, those were possibilities. Now, I haven't listened to the whole clip, but based on that, I thought, okay, maybe let's try and be a bit charitable to his view and see if he is correct. I mean, at best, he could be correct, but it just may be controversial. And at worst, it could be factually incorrect. And I'm starting to lean on that end that he might be factually incorrect, but I will know when I do the ManPatria podcast tonight. I'll just read more into what you're saying. But definitely so. I mean, I think that if we know how to think, when people say things that are controversial, we may be a bit more charitable to their views, even though it may cause some shock. You'll still be like, oh, okay, you know what? Let's just hear him out first, and then we'll assess it. So that's what I have to say about it.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting place for us to start, but I don't want us to stay in the world of political theory and political structures and how it all works. I want us to actually get into some of the current affairs situations too. Pums, you want to say something before we close that off?
No.
So guys, I don't know about this. I've only found out this morning because I read an article before we started the show about a possible cabinet reshuffle, or am I out of date? Is this happening this week?
It's speculation. It's speculation.
Oh, okay.
There is a hang of a lot of speculation going on, and it started last week. I think one of the daily newspapers flaunted a story about a looming shuffle and who the people that are the weakest link apparently in Cyril's cabinet and most likely to be shuffled are. But nobody has said anything concrete. It's just a rumor. Have you heard anything else, Duma?
It becomes so boring because we're constantly talking about personality politics instead of the actual results. If we just analyzed each department based on how, let's say they balance their books, is one of the matrices. One of the others might be how much delivery actually happens from that department. The other one might be how well the director general performs as opposed to the minister, and where everybody can do better. But no, instead we look at the personalities here because we're obsessed as a country with who rather than with what. And I think that's a problem.
Yeah, I would say that the cabinet reshuffle is just one of those, or looming cabinet reshuffle is one of those stories that I think when media houses are having a slow week and they're like, hey guys, there's no controversy, so let's just bring this up because, hey, it's possible that there might be a cabinet reshuffle. And people just love, they just love personalities. I don't know if it's just a human thing, but we love to see personalities clash, and we love to see Ramaphosa, what he's,
Isn't it also true that part of the reason that cabinet reshuffles happen in South Africa is less to do with government and more to do with the ANC than anything else? It's really ANC cadre deployment at the highest level. So what we're watching is internal ANC politics play out in the top levels of our government, regardless of service delivery, of who the most merit appointments could be. This is actually watching, and we've turned it into like a one-act play almost, that when the president reshuffles, we always think, oh, well, that'll be a good minister there. But if there's still people who think that, they're missing the point. The reason the president hands out cabinet appointments is to reward cadres when the ANC is going through a good time or a bad time, and to bring in people who he can trust or she can trust. And it's just outrageous, actually. That shouldn't be anything to do with it. Pumi, you were nodding your head. You agree?
Well, I'm just thinking about the politics of personality and how much the ANC's machinations have taken over government, but also a little bit about how mainstream media in South Africa, a lot of our media has become so partisan.
Oh yeah.
And have fallen into the trap of being part of these battles. And I'm very interested to hear what your take is on this. A couple of days ago, we see first IOL online, and then they had it on the front page yesterday. Some obscure guy who's opened a case against Cyril Ramaphosa and Shanduka for racketeering. And this hot off the heels of within the ANC, Ace Magashule sending, as the Secretary General of the ANC, sending a letter out to all the branches and the regions to say, can he please get a list of all the people who have corruption cases pending, who've had convictions, all of that kind of stuff, in preparation, he says, for putting into action the 2018 Nasrec resolution of step aside. And this is 15 days before he is supposed to step aside. And all of these things, I'm looking at all of these things, I'm thinking, this is all just a distraction. There's so many things that our government should be worried about. There's so many things that our government should be taking care of. And we are all so obsessed with step aside this, Zuma this, Cyril this. Now there's a case against Cyril. And I'm asking myself, so there's a case now against Cyril. Is this some kind of check in this chess game that they're playing? Because is he going to step aside? Is he going to step aside as the president of the ANC? Or is he expected to step aside as the president of the ANC and the president of the country? What the hell, guys?
Dumo, well, you want to try that one? You want to give it a go?
Yeah, I personally think it's a distraction. I think as I said earlier, it's more of like slow news week. What can we bring up? Talking about the problems in the country. I mean, again, we had a lockdown that took millions of people out of work. I mean, we got like close to 10 million people unemployed as a result. And the biggest story is, hey, is Ace going to step aside? And this is the problem I have. It's just that there are more serious issues in the country.
I love that contrast. I love that contrast you just made. 10 million people lose their jobs and people don't bat an eyelid. And one guy in the ANC might lose his job and everybody's like up in arms. It's unbelievable, right? Our priorities just screwed up. And I do think, Pumi, you're right. The media plays a part in this because they are allowing themselves to be used as tools by the politicians. The opposite should be happening. The politicians should know that the media houses are going to, or at least good journalists in those media houses, are going to hold them to account for things they say and do. Of course, that's not happening in all of them. There are one or two who are doing better than others. But by and large, I think IOL has been completely discredited. I think the SABC at this point has more objective truth going on than IOL does, right?
Hey. Buffett. Are they still are the media houses still paying for good journalists?
Yeah, where are they?
Are they paying for good journalists? Because unfortunately, and we've had this conversation before. There's a lot of junior people in those newsrooms that lack the depth, and then because of the turnaround times of these stories, the stories themselves lack a little bit of rigor, just in terms of back checking, in terms of background to the story. It's hectic out here, guys. Hectic.
And of course, they're actually they're not in the business of journalism anymore. They're in the business of clickbait, and they're in the business of fishing around Twitter for stories that they know will get them trending, rather than stories that the public should know about because it affects our lives. It's all ass about face, if you ask me. Can I refer to a small story that should be a big story? There was a land invasion on Monday in Robbie Ridge, and the people there are furious because there's a piece of land. Turns out this land, government says it doesn't belong to them. They say that there's a private owner. The private owner says, yes, it is mine, but it belonged for the longest time to government. We can't figure out who's really in charge here, but the community are furious because they have nowhere to live. They're living in an informal settlement on top of each other. These are people who work or are trying to find work in and around that area. And they have lost patience because unless you block roads, and they built walls, they actually took bricks and cement and built walls in the middle of the road in frustration. The police came in, obviously, with Caspers and all those other rattles, whatever the vehicles are that they use now. And they chased these people with tear gas. They fired water cannons at them, rubber bullets. It's amazing to me how, despite the fact that we keep claiming we have this incredible constitution and we're a country where the poor have a say and the poor are heard by the majority party who they claim to represent, that whenever anything like this happens, the only people who end up being victimized are the poor. The only people who end up at the brunt of police brutality, which, if this was America, would be front page news, but ends up a tiny story in the news that maybe you remember on a Thursday if it happened on a Monday. These people are desperate. The things they have to do to just get government's attention, to have basic water and electricity, even just space to erect some kind of a shelter for themselves. And we're worried about, mass expropriation without compensation, but government land can't even be given to people where it's clear that there's a need and that land is not being used for anything else. What do you guys make of this?
We should be worried about that expropriation without compensation. Very
Absolutely.
much so.
No, we should, yes. So. But this is like the isn't this the sharp edge of the wedge, Pumi? These small protests like Robbie Ridge.
So I don't think so. I mean, on the one side, they show a lot of the discontent that we have in this country. They show that we are ripe for some kind of people are angry. People are angry. People are tired. People are poor. And that's a bad place to be in. It's a bad place in any country. And our government just does not care. Our government doesn't care. But this is different and a separate issue to what that expropriations bill looks like. The expropriations bill is using as a mask those disgruntled, unemployed, unsheltered masses. It's using them as a mask. And I very recently was just reading some of the history of that bill. So it should concern us because that bill, guys, if you think about it, when it was brought to the table, is at the height of the Gupta heist, right? Mm-hmm. And the way that bill is written is it's basically government kind of going, we can decide what's important for the government agenda. And anyone from a municipal manager right up to a minister can identify a property or piece of land to say, we need this to advance the agenda of government, and therefore it is going to get expropriated. What? Who is behind that bill? Who is behind that bill?
Isn't it also pandering? Because they don't really... it's theft, but it's also pandering to poor people because they're saying to them, we're going to bring in this legislation. The government has had the ability to expropriate lawfully property since 1994, and they haven't used that to the degree that they could have. And we know that land reform has been pitiful and slow and has happened only where people are connected to politicians.
But that's why I'm saying it's a mask. Saying it's a mask. It's not pandering to poor people. They are masking.
You are right.
The issue with poor people. Duma, you feel strongly about this. What do you think?
Yes. One thing I'll say is that when it comes to politicians, they are, some would say race hustlers. I would say poverty hustlers or poverty pimps. So basically what they do is they have all these poor people. They tell them, listen, if you give us power, we will, we'll make everything great for you. And these guys are desperate. They don't have jobs. They're angry, and you said it's a bad place to be in. Definitely so. And they'll usually listen to the first person that makes a promise. So they'll vote for that guy. I remember I saw a photo of Jeff Khatebe, and he was wearing really, really, really like nice clothes. And he visited one ANC supporter who was like living in a shack. And I'm like, that's how you sum it up. You got these guys becoming rich by saying that they are standing up for the poor. And then once they get the votes, they do whatever they want, and then they expropriate and do all this crazy stuff. And this is the problem that we have, is that, when people are desperate, we are going to see more of this occurring. Then you got the expropriation bill, which for me is a sign that the government is desperate. They don't have any assets. They don't have any money. And what they want to do is they want to have this unbridled power of just taking whatever property they see fit. I mean, this is a recipe for disaster. I mean, this is what they did in Venezuela. They went on expropriation spree, and look where the country is right now. So you definitely, I agree, it's a mask, but also at the same time, it's very, very, very dangerous, and it's going to set a set of dominoes. And I don't think once the first domino falls, it'll be very difficult to stop the whole flow. But yeah, it's terrible. It's terrible in every way whatsoever.
And don't get it twisted. It's not expropriation to benefit anybody but themselves. We we have thugs in power, guys. We have thugs in power.
It's what ZANU PF did in Zimbabwe. It was like farms for our friends, our party loyalists. That's what it was.
Sorry.
I'm so pleased you corrected me there, because I was conflating two very separate issues, which I now see thanks to your explanation, Pumi. I mean, those poor people in Robbie Ridge, this has got nothing to do with expropriation without compensation for them. In their case, it's like desperation without compensation. And actually, the expropriation bill should be resisted at every possible turn. If people care about honest enterprise and free trade and the ability for ordinary South Africans to do the one thing that will pull you out of poverty, and that is for us all to be more productive as a nation and to create value.
Right.
Fight.
All right. Can we talk briefly about the Judicial Services Commission and the possible appointment of a new constitutional court judge? The appointment of judges is such a messy business, and it seems to me that there is a huge overlap between the executive and the judiciary when it comes to the appointment of judges. Obviously, after that, we have a constitution which makes the judiciary, at least in writing, it seems to be a more independent body. We have people who have fought tirelessly and who've done incredible things during their sometimes illustrious careers on the bench to ensure that the judiciary remains independent. But are we and should we be more concerned about what goes on at the JSC? It's very boring to ordinary people, and most people don't have time to watch these hearings, but we probably should, right? No. Pumi says no.
I would say yes. I would say yes, because I remember I had a guest on my show, Martin van Staden, and we spoke about this. And it's interesting how politicians are deeply involved in these selection of judges. And I'm thinking now, imagine you're a lefty, socialist lefty. You know, the only way you got into parliament was because you destroyed some school property, and now you have to decide if this person, if a certain judge is going to be fit. And I'm thinking that's not correct, because you're going to be selecting judges based on an ideology, not based on whether if this person can interpret the Constitution correctly, or at worst, you might select them based on how you think they should interpret the Constitution, because now there's this view of expanded constitutionalism, which is more of like this social justice. And again, I stand to be corrected, but it seems to have the social justice narrative that's attached to interpreting the Constitution, as opposed to looking at it for what it is. And that seems to be one battle that's going on. And now you got politicians on the other end trying to influence it. I don't think it's a good thing. But again, people will say, well, if politicians are not involved, then people don't have a say, and elected individuals need to have a say in this process. So therefore, it needs to happen. But again, there are pitfalls to it as well. So I think people should be concerned, because if a controversial judge is put in just because of how they view the Constitution, and it's not consistent with how it's supposed to be interpreted, that is an issue. That is a massive issue.
Awesome. I think that's a good answer. I'm just worried that maybe with a little bit of experience, 25, 26 years of experience in how government should operate, maybe there were things that we didn't foresee in terms of the relationship between the three branches of government, the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature. And that maybe we need, Americans, for example, they vote for judges when they go to the polls. Now, that would be even more dangerous in this country. Can you imagine the kinds of people who the politicians would recruit onto party lists and we could vote for as judges. At least at this point, the judiciary is still by qualification. You have to have been a judge, you have to have been an advocate or an attorney. You know, there are certain things that are basic bare minimums, which I think are a good thing. But maybe we should look at other ways to structure the judiciary, or maybe even find other people. Maybe there should be a commission similar to the JSC of old judges who appoint the new judges. Because at the moment, it's the president who appoints them on advice from the JSC. And the JSC is just another elected body because it's a committee, effectively, drawn from the political parties represented in parliament.
It's a flawed system. But, you know, at the moment, it's the best of the flawed systems that we do have. What you hope for, and unfortunately, this is the thing, Gareth, you studied Roman Dutch law, is you hope that the people who are the ones who are supposed to uphold the law for us or review the law have got the wisdom of Solomon, and that their belief system is not only based on the law of the country, which is our constitution, but also of the consensus of the population. You know, we kind of, as South Africans, our constitution is our base belief system, and from there unfortunately, it's a flawed system, but it's the best of the systems that we do have. You hope that they will follow the letter of the law or apply their rigorous minds to how that law gets applied to the general public. You know, the law is supposed to protect the best and the worst of us, the weakest and the worst.
Yeah.
So
and we should still always have some space for people to know that no matter how awful the things are they might have done, that you are still innocent until proven guilty. And that at very least, and it's not just criminal stuff, at very least that the judiciary, no matter who appoints them and where they come from, that they will uphold your individual rights to property, to free speech, to live as happily and as freely as you possibly can. That is the whole point of a government, is really to create the structures that will arbitrate between us as people, not just between us and government, but also between me and Pumi if we have a dispute, that there are ways for us to settle
Gareth
that dispute.
Between Gareth and Damon.
Exactly, when we're arguing like we were yesterday. Okay, let's just turn our thoughts further afield, because I know a lot of people want to talk about this, and it's something I'm a little bit obsessed with, I'll admit, and maybe I'm boring people with it, but I can't get enough of this ridiculous cancel culture movement. I see that Hank Azaria, this is ridiculous, but just bear with me. Hank Azaria is the guy who voiced a number of characters on The Simpsons. One of those characters was Apu Nahasapima Petalon, who is an Indian shopkeeper in The Simpsons, right? And Apu is one of my favorite characters in The Simpsons. And he's got a very stereotypical kind of Indian accent, which is amazing. I've got to give Indian people credit, because no matter where they are in the world, first generation Indian immigrants all do have the same sound to them. You know, if you're Polish, you have a different kind of sound if you're in America to if you're in South Africa to anywhere else. But the Indians have such a strong cultural background. And as a nation, obviously, there are different dialects and there are different languages and there are different backgrounds and different ethnicities in India. It's a huge country. But it seems to me like you can do an Indian accent and people know what you're talking about, an Indian person, or at least a first generation Indian immigrant. So Hank Azaria is not an Indian, and the cancel mob has decided it's unacceptable for me to pretend. Now, he's an actor, all right. And acting means that you have to pretend you're someone you're not. That's the whole point of being an actor. He has to now apologize, and he has, for voicing Apu on The Simpsons. He says the problem is that he's white, and therefore he cannot ever voice an Indian person. What is the purpose of an actor if they can only play people with their lived experiences? Then you shouldn't go into acting. Acting is a stupid thing that we should shut down the whole of Hollywood, Bollywood, Nollywood. We should stop thinking about making movies. We should stop writing plays. We should stop putting ourselves in the position that so many writers, the greatest writers in history, have put themselves in, of trying to imagine what it's like in someone else's shoes. In fact, that is also the definition of respect, is it not? Is to look twice, is to look at it from your point of view and to look at it from someone else's point of view. These people are so literal in the cancel mob. They're so absolutely literal, that they cannot picture a scenario where it might be possible for me to imagine Pumi's life or Dumo's life. That is how unimaginative these people are. This is how indoctrinated and ideologized they are. Do you think that this is as big a problem as I am, as I'm saying it is, or do you disagree with me? Do you think it'll pass and this is just something stupid?
Dumo, you go first.
Okay, I'll go first. Okay, I think for me, it could escalate. I'm just wondering. I mean, now this guy who apologized, what about the guys who wrote the whole Simpsons series, the script writers? Yeah. I mean, well, what's their race and ethnicity and so forth?
Yeah.
So the thing is that these guys, they only are, these cancel culture people are only going after individuals who seem to not fit the narrative or fit the script, or how I want to put it. And now what happens now is that they go after that guy, but then now what about everyone else? I'm not saying that they should, but it's very, the problem is that they don't understand the industry. They don't understand that there are people who actually go out there and create series based on, you know, typical stereotypes. And again, you don't have to watch it. That's the thing. I don't understand why for them it's such a big issue that they have to go out and make sure that there has to be some sort of consistency with the actors and their race and who they're representing and so forth. I mean, what makes them think that they should even decide such a thing? You know, never mind that it has to be a person of a particular skin color that has to represent a certain person in a movie or a film. What makes them think that they should be the gatekeepers of such? It's ridiculous. And I think, in my opinion, if they actually applied that logic to their own position, then they would actually realize that, oh no, we're actually in the wrong here and we shouldn't be trying to be the judge. But yeah, it's really sad and it could escalate. It could become worse. I mean, Godson spoke about this many times and, you know, he's been prophetic.
Yeah,
you know,
that's right.
Every time we talk about cancel culture, I always think that we're looking at it at a very narrow lens. What it is at the base of it is a group of people who are unhappy about a particular way another group of people either portrays them or a thing or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But if you were to and unfortunately, because of the way that media is so disintermediated now, each and every single one person has an amplified voice, right? But actually, if you think about the abolition of slavery, that's a form of cancel culture. A group of people decided that this particular action is no longer compatible or agreeable for the bigger majority. And a group of people stood up against that and systematically ended that way of being. Similarly with world wars, you know, a group of people decided that this particular way of being and this particular culture does not gel with what the rest of us believe, and they canceled it. So when you think about the fact that you look at it at a very narrow lens, where each and every single individual now has a megaphone where they can voice their disgruntlement and basically go to war against something that they believe is not a way of life but for the rest of us.
I hear you, but does that mean that there are good and bad forms of cancel culture? And is all of it progressive? Is all of it useful to us? Or is some of it retrogressive? I mean, if you know, if I can't put on an accent anymore, you know, which is something I used to do on radio all the time. And now I have to think very carefully if I use an accent, because some people are going to interpret that in some way as me stereotyping and judging and being negative about someone, when actually I'm just trying to mimic them. And I think this is something humans have done for thousands of years. If that becomes unacceptable in society, are we not losing more than we gain? And certainly your example of the abolition of slavery may be a good one. I don't know that that's cancel culture. I think that's progress.
Slavery is cancelled.
Yes, no, but I think that's progress. I wouldn't define that as an unhealthy, unruly mob demanding that everyone conform to their idea. I think what it was like a negotiated settlement, and the people who were on the wrong side of history, they didn't have an argument anymore. It was well reasoned. It wasn't just pressure to conform.
Gareth, if you think about, and this is where for me, the advancement of quite a lot of things that cancel culture has brought to the fore is it makes you think about it. It makes you think about what it is that you're wanting to achieve from stereotyping a particular individual or a particular group of individuals. And more importantly, not only is it about your intention, but it is about how it is received on the other side. We know this, that these stereotypes have a negative impact on a whole lot of people. People are less likely to get a particular job if they look like a particular person, if they speak like a particular way, if they, all of those, what stereotypes tend to do is they group a bunch of people into one thing, and that's the psyche of humanity. And now we are at a place where the individual has become so elevated in our society. And what cancel culture is doing is it's saying, actually, you are no longer allowed to group people. Each individual that you come into contact with, you must engage them as an individual, and each and every single one of those people. You don't come at me thinking all Black women are loud and angry. Don't come at me like that. Because if those are the stereotypes that are put out in media, and, Schuster or Medea, or you know what I'm saying? Those things have a very real psychological impact on the way that the rest of society deals with people. There's a place for it.
Perhaps it boils down. You agree, Dumo? Because I think largely you don't agree. Okay, well, go ahead. You come in next. I'll wait.
I don't agree, because the reality is that the people that are pushing the cancel culture are in fact stereotyping. These are the individuals who are saying that you can't put on an accent because when you do it, you're mocking. But then when someone from that particular group, or as identified from that particular group, starts to stereotype, let's say, his grandfather who has that particular accent, then it's fine. It's okay because he's part of it. But then when someone of a different race does the same thing, it's wrong because he has the wrong skin color. So I
think my problem with this is also that cancel culture is not targeting a policy like slavery. The abolition of slavery this is something that's got to change for all of us. Cancel culture goes after individuals. Like here it's going after one actor, but it doesn't go after another actor, for example. It's fine for a Black actress, for example, to play Anne Boleyn.
But that actor is a proxy. That actor is a proxy.
But then
that actor is a proxy.
But then you can't get someone fired from their job.
So you see, Gareth, like you say today, that when you think about mimicking or making fun of in a particular accent or stereotype, you think hard about it. It's the proxy. What the proxy does is it sets an example. We were talking earlier about the law and the Constitution. That's why there are precedents. That's why the law has precedents. It's a single case that changes the environment. That's what that's about. You need a proxy. And I mean, even if you think about the abolition of slavery, and what it was for, is it sounds today, when you look back, like it was their better nature, the angels of their better nature that wanted to abolish slavery. But actually it is not. It's simply because with industrialism, people who did not have slaves could not compete because the cost of labor was making it hard for them to compete. So now you go, actually, those guys with the slaves, hell no. They're competing at an unequal. We should all not have slaves so that we all can compete.
But what about when they come for you? Because, if you voice an opinion here on the Burning Platform this morning that someone powerful in government doesn't like, and you lose out on a massive business deal, and you and Kanejo don't have food on the table next week. I mean, that to me doesn't seem like it's any more a fair proxy battle. That's them leveraging their power against you because they don't agree with you. And I see a lot more of that happening than I do righteous indignation about proper things that threaten humanity. I mean, you see it over the most incredibly stupid things. And it's really got to do with people who are slacktivists sitting there.
Unfortunately, that's the price of principle. That's the price of principle. Robert Sobukwe was in prison with his own clause in the law statutes, with his own clause, because of his principles. That's the price of principle.
I don't know, guys. The way
you
I
don't know
see
if
it,
that's the price of principle.
No, it's just that I think there's some sort of equivocation error, because like if slavery got cancelled, then fine, but it's not the same as an actor getting cancelled. I think,
and I don't think it has the same result.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's more like it's more fallacious. I think it's an equivocation fallacy, because what you're doing is you're taking the word cancel in one context and making it equal to cancel in another context. Yes, slavery got cancelled, but it's not based off an ideology where it states that you can't portray a certain person in a particular way because you have the wrong skin color or you don't have the shared experience. It's totally
based on
different.
an ideology that says I cannot compete with you because you have free labor.
No. I'm talking about the actors, right? So if you look at the slavery one, you're right when you mentioned that yes, they are people couldn't compete because of the price of labor. Fine, and that's one debate. And slavery ended maybe as a result of that. But now we're talking about
maybe as a result of that they went to war because they couldn't compete.
Yes, but
and
it's not.
You come from the capitalist party,
but
brother,
it's not.
and this
but it's
is.
not. But it's not the same as
why?
canceling someone because he has the wrong skin color and he's portraying someone that's not in his supposed cultural background. That's a totally different thing. Yes, the word cancel is used in both contexts, but it doesn't mean the same thing.
I'm just sad because you know what's going to happen. Like Apu as a character in The Simpsons, someone who I loved, is now going to go away, or they're going to change him, and I'm no longer going to want to watch that Apu anymore. He had a character, he had a voice, he had a personality, which even though he was made up, was real to me growing up through season after season of The Simpsons. The only person who loses is the viewer. The only person who loses is the person who actually loves that.
Have you watched a documentary called Disclosure?
No.
It's actually it's on Netflix right now. It's an award-winning documentary from a couple of years ago, and it's about transgender individuals and the portrayal of transgender individuals within the media context. And it's very fascinating because they talk to people who played transgender individuals who were not transgender. They talk to famous actors and writers and producers who are transgender and how that has changed, but also how it has made a difference to their safety. Because of the portrayals, because of the stereotypes and the portrayals, the level of safety, and transgender individuals are still live a very difficult and very precarious life. They still get killed and attacked. We have here in South Africa, you don't even have to be transgender. You just have to be gay and you can still get killed. We have almost daily, we have stories about that. You should see it. You should see this documentary, which for me is a one facet of telling the story of why individuals should own their stories. Individuals should own their stories in not just in the way that they are portrayed or who portrays them, but also in the way that they are written, in the way that it is produced. All of those things.
But then it must be okay. But then that's a documentary. That's not story anymore. It's acting.
But it is about acting. The documentary is about acting.
But here's that's the beauty of it. That's the thing. Make the documentary that educates people on that, and then people will make their own decisions on that. It's better to do that than to go and cancel someone because he decided to play a certain role in a particular movie.
Guys, I'm afraid
people should decide. Yeah.
I'm afraid we're not going to solve this problem today. In fact, we may not solve it even if we did the burning platform for 3 months solid. I wanted to get to the Derek Chauvin trial, which is obviously hugely contentious as well, because no matter what the jury do in that case, there's going to be an issue. And I think that the people in Minnesota are probably more nervous. The people in Minneapolis, anyway, are more nervous about the riots that will ensue no matter what happens. If he's found guilty, then it is proof that America is systemically racist. Then it's proof that he's a racist. If not, it's proof that America is systemically racist. So, the audience here are going to get whatever the audience decide they want. And in the meantime, no real progress is made. This is only entrenching ugliness. And I wanted to get into more of this. Maybe we'll save it for next time. Pums, I know you've got things to say about it, but Dumo, we'll have you back again soon. All right.
All right. Thanks for having me. I much appreciate
it. Thank you. That's Dumo Denga. Thank you so much for joining us today. And Pumi Mashiho, always good to have you, Pums. Thank you very much. Have an excellent Thursday, and we will see you tomorrow at 6 a.m. bright and early, cliffcentral.com. This has been The Burning Platform, brought to you by Nando.